the culture of this group. One, we're not going to do a lot of talking at you. So I will give a brief recap to get us all up to the same place, but this is not going to be, you just sit and listen. So most of the time is going to be spent working in small groups to figure out, to do the work. I mean, this is the work. Number two, while Pillsbury has a small grant to do the infrastructure of like pulling people together and the meals, that grant is about to be done. And so this isn't that we come together and then Pillsbury goes and does the work. This is we are the people who will carry this forward. Us and the people who've been to different meetings but aren't here today, and future people that we will invite in. So this is a working meeting, and hopefully we're transitioning from the last few meetings where we really talked about ideas to, in this meeting, talking about how we start doing things together outside of our meeting spaces. So just to review, the objectives of the original grant that Pillsbury received were to build a community coalition, us, to address mental health and substance use disorders and all health inequities and access issues among Black, East African, Latino, and Native American communities. So that's the original objective of the group. And as you heard from the beginning, we all have different pieces that we play in that space. So here's a little recap of what we've talked about so far. And if you got the invitation for today, you have the notes, so you can also read this. But basically, this work built off of a different set of work where Pillsbury did intergenerational listening sessions. And in these intergenerational listening sessions, one of the things that people said was, we know that mental health and substance use disorders are challenges facing our community. We don't always know how to talk about it with each other. We don't always have the spaces to talk about it. We don't know how to bring some people into the conversation. Pillsbury, one thing we would like you to do is help create spaces where we can start having these conversations in and amongst people who might not regularly be talking about these things. Number two, what we heard, it's appropriate we were here because we heard it most at this listening session, is we can't wait for the systems to do this for us. We will be waiting. So we need a village. We need to figure out how we take care of each other. And so what we landed on last time was, what does it look like to create these villages? And someone who was with us last time, John, and I'm sorry, I don't remember his last name, but he was with Hennepin County. He said, never doubt the power of small. So we're not trying to build like a Disneyland-sized village. We're saying, how do we start to organize ourselves in a way where we're so good at what we do that it grows organically? That the energy of what we're doing is so compelling that people want to find us and say, how can I be a part of that? Okay, but a part of what? What is this village doing? Okay, so we came up with 8 things last time. And what I'm going to do is I'll read them and then I'll pass it around so that you can just see the words. What we're going to do today is spend time. I'm going to ask you all to pick one group to work with and say, where do we start? As a village, or as many villages, where do we start on this topic? Okay? You'll see there's 8 topics. 5 of them have stars. Those are the 5 we'll focus on today. Unless you really want to do one of the other ones. I just think they're sort of like future topics. Okay. So the number one thing, not number one, these aren't in order, but one thing people said, we need to integrate holistic and cultural approaches. So how do we do dementia care where we address witchcraft? Right? You cannot go to a medical facility here and have someone, a Western medical facility, have someone help you with that. So what we heard is we need more culturally relevant resources. And with that comes everything. How do you offer it? How do people find it? How do we get it paid for, right? This is a whole body of work. So I'll pass that around. The next one is enhanced community connectedness. And we really heard a lot about this last time. It's both how do we become connected to each other as people, but also, like Hennepin County was saying, we need better PR. We need to be able to outreach to communications professionals. Or what if we need to, someone said, how come we don't have addicts, former addicts at the table? Who are, and maybe we do, but we don't invite people in that role. We need to be learning with them. They need to be teaching us. So how do we connect to more people within the community and continue to grow who feels like they're a part of this village and who feels like they have the support of this village? So that's a second one. A third one, recognize and foster healthy relationships. So one of the things we talked about last time is there are a lot of people who don't know how to be in a healthy relationship. They've never had that. How do you know it when you see it? How do you ask for that for yourself? How do you hold your boundaries? How do you do this? Some people need a lot of help with this, and we can't just assume that they picked it up in kindergarten. Alleviate loneliness and cultivate belonging. This might sound a lot like the last two, relationships and connectedness, but you can be in relationship and connected and feel very lonely. So this isn't just about having people you can call on, but feeling like you belong somewhere. And understanding, the Surgeon General has said we're in an epidemic of loneliness in this country. And one of the reasons people face mental health issues and turn to substance use is loneliness. You can't give someone a prescription to address loneliness. This is something we need to be able to address together. So this is in the realm of relationships, but something very specific. I said we would focus on 5 today. The last one is just saying, how do we get more into the relationship between mental health and substance use disorder? Is there more that we need to understand? Are there ways that we need to bring these spaces or people or something into closer communication? So those are the 5 topics for today. The 3 additional topics. 1, how do we balance urgency with patience in our response? So we all know there's people dying literally every day. So this is urgent. And nothing we just passed around can actually be done very quickly. So how do we do both? How do we keep our eyes on both what we can do right away, but also be patient enough so we don't do something fast but not good, or so that we don't work so fast that we burn ourselves out? So that's one thing to figure out as a group. The second thing will be, how do we recognize what's working and scale what's working and adapt it into different villages and different spaces? So as we start trying things, how do we know when it's working and what do we do next? And then how do we as a group continue to show up and learn together, right? So how do we stay committed to continuous learning? Any questions, reactions, surprises, validations? I'll pass this around, and if anyone wants to comment on these topics, you'll have your chance. Otherwise, you can just pass.
So if anything I'd like to add is kind of just two things that popped out at me, which is, recognizing what the issues are within our particular community, whether it be for someone who has Alzheimer's, someone who has substance abuse issues, someone who is hiding, mental health symptoms. We've done few trainings at Pillsbury United, at Brian Cole location on Riverside, to address these issues within the Somali East African side of the community, whether it be, the stigma or, just being labeled. It doesn't matter what culture you come from. Nobody wants to be labeled. Oh, this person has a broken leg, but it's going to heal at some point. You just need to be able to go through physical therapy, so on and so forth. I think recognizing what is the issue for some people within our trained professionals is key. And then educating them about how to seek out help. So that's one thing that popped out at me, and then also being able to address it in a way that's not going to alienate anyone. So those are the two things that I wanted to speak.
I think one of the big things for me is this, that we continue to recognize cultural respects. There's some things about other cultures we don't know, we just don't understand, and we need to allow them to take the lead on that. Understanding just what I'm saying, there's some things we just don't know about each other, and there's some things that we don't need to understand.
This is just a general comment, and maybe I'm being an overachiever, but are there some of them, considering that we have a smaller group size, that we can group together so that we can add maybe the systems level stuff in our discussion today? Because the last three, how do we scale, how do we continue learning, and how do we balance urgency with long-term solutions? I want to give them, a space at the table. So if we're open to that, I think maybe the social connectedness and alleviating loneliness, those topics, I think the first two or three we can maybe group together and talk about, and then so we can, I don't know. I'm excited about all of them.
I am really interested in focusing on holistic healing. I think most of my background is in nutrition work, and so I always come to mental health or any sort of topic around trauma about food at the core of it. I mean, we had a meal together today, and as well as culturally familiar responses, I think is something that, as we do our work, my team on community well-being, I think we're trying to be more mindful about it, and I'm interested in learning more from the community as well. I think it was important that somebody brought up, we don't know if there's a former addict or somebody that's in recovery with us today, but I think having somebody that can speak towards that experience will help us understand how to better connect with them on a humanistic level.
For me, what resonates with me is enhancing the community connectedness, which is also related to elevate loneliness and cultivate belonging. A lot of us, people who are, whether it's a patient, whether it's a provider, there's no bond, there's no that connection. So how can we cultivate that and create source whereby people are open to talk about how they feel and also accept feedback and also be open to, get better. And also, I work with a lot of residents of the Minneapolis public housing, people living, on their own. After COVID-19, things have been different. People have been isolated, and there's a lot of mental health, there's a lot of substance abuse. So I think this is very important, and it stands with a lot of projects I'm working on, and I want to see more and learn a lot about it. So yeah.
For me, I just want to say that I think this is a really healthy, lengthy start. I think that I wanted to touch on you saying something about how, all of these aren't going to be done right away and it's going to take time, but that the commitment of us showing up is really impactful, and I appreciate us all being here.
For me, what's jumping right now in North notes is holistic approach culturally, because the setup in the U.S. is the for mainstream, and our communities has different culture, different background, and the best way is the people who actually are from that community can help people who need help. And the other thing is with the mental health and drug use, that because what I believe is nobody does not just wake up one morning and say that, okay, I'm just going to use drugs. There has to be a deeper issue this person is using because they want to forget something, or to escape something. So unless we get the root of that, I don't think 30 days inpatient or cleaning drugs or coming back again, being in same circle is going to help. At least when the person have that problem, they need at least long term. And they need that if they go in facility for cleaning or something, they need to go to have like, what's the next step? And what's the next, what's next until they are, can stand on their own feet, have the skills, and also support that they can come back to the community and do what they used to do before all this happened. So, and with this, the urgency and patience, because what's going on, it's right now, it's very urgent. And I don't know if I have the patience. For me, it's just, let's tackle this thing wherever we can and however we can. Thank you.
Nora said, this is really very deep. And I think John, who used to work with the county, he just keeps saying, do not undermine the small group or a small number of people, and which we realized last meeting or last month, where we got the chance to talk deep into those issues, and we just discussed about so many things, but we came up with this, 5 or 8 points, to say in my word, what I felt out of this 8 points we came up with. When we talk about the cultural holistic approach, in many ways, when we talk about the health and the wellness of the community or individual, we just say about body, soul, and the spirit. But when we just talk about the holisticness of the culture, we just talking about the culture of, the Somalis, Oromos, Latinx, African American, Native American, or, any community or any BICOP community who we are targeting from our different, social services, and how we will approach those cultures and those communities, from the breakfast to lunch to the dinner, the whole day, in our whole work, in different neighborhoods. How they just, think about mental health, substance use. How they just want to be told about the issue. We know the issue is just there in the community, right? So how we have to approach the youth, the religious leaders, the parents. So I think that is a holistic means of talking to the community members in the way they understand. I was expecting Nawal, who was really taking the lead in, developing the cultural curriculum for, mental health or substance use disorder prevention, because that is, we came up after we have some curriculum in the past, and we just said this curriculum, it doesn't work a long way for our East African community because there is a way they want to be told, so that is, I think, the area we want to discuss in that cultural holistic approach. And again, when we talk about the community connectedness, it is just about the community connecting community to community or community to the resource or resource to the community. But elevating, loneliness and cultivating belongingness is just, about individuals, individuals who are, in those circumstances of substance use disorder or, mental health issue, how we approach them and how we just reduce the stigma, how we just carve or reduce the harm, from those individuals or the household or the community.
So we're going to break into groups. I want to say, even though you'll pick one topic, of course you'll probably be talking about solutions that address multiple topics. And I'll give you 2 examples. Has anyone heard of Melanin in Motion? So there's a group in the Twin Cities called Melanin in Motion. And it's for people of color who want to be in sports that are traditionally for white people. So they have biking in the summer, they have snowboarding in the winter, and one of the things that they do is slow rolls. And so what you do is you bike through a community, so it's all bikers with melanin biking through a community, and there's like a block party too. There's barbecue, there's music, and so you don't have to be like this fast professional rider. You just need to be able to like slowly roll through the neighborhood. That addresses belonging, right? You're providing food, physical health. So one solution or one idea can address quite a few topics. Okay, so they're color coded. If you want one, come take it, find your people. These tables are on wheels, so if you want to like pull yourself into a corner for 45 minutes, do that.